Hey guys, I'm going to do problem number 1 from tonight's homework. In this homework assignment, you need to find the inverse function for each equation, but you're going to do it algebraically, so that's the key here, right? It's like what we did in class today. Graph both equations and then state whether or not each equation constitutes a function. So we'll graph the first one, then we'll graph its inverse, and then we'll state whether or not that is a function. So just like we did in class, what we're going to do is we are going to, step 1, flip x and y, and step 2, solve for y. Alright, so that's the whole process. So dealing with number 1 here, I'm going to rewrite this as x equals 2y minus 4, and then I'm going to start to solve for y. So I'll draw the river. Remember, we're reversing PEMDAS here, so I'm going to work on getting rid of any addition or subtraction. That means this minus 4. So the opposite of subtracting 4 would be adding 4. Alright, so now we have x plus 4 equals 2y. And we don't have any more addition or subtraction, so I'm going to focus on getting rid of this 2. Alright, so divide that by 2, divide this by 2. And we'll end up with y all by itself, and we'll have x plus 4 over 2. Now this is where it gets important that we be able to reproduce this in slope-intercept form, because we're going to have to graph this thing, and this does not help us graph it. So what I'm going to do, just to be clear, is I'll graph the original in blue, and then I'll graph the other one in red. We'll plot the first function, which has a slope of 2 and a y-intercept of negative 4. And before I plot it, remember that slope should really be written as 2 over 1, because slope should have rise and it should have run. So I'm going to plot my first point at negative 4, and then from there I'm going to go up 2 and over 1. And I could go down 2 and left 1 as well if I want to. I'm going to connect it with a line, because it's an equation, not just a couple of points. So there is y equals, I'll write it here, 2x minus 4. There's that line. All right, now we're going to graph the new one that we just found. So this one, I'm going to want to rewrite that. I want this to be in slope-intercept form. So I'll write it as y equals, and m is going to be 1/2. So that came from here. I took x and divided it by 2, which is the same as dividing 1x by 2, which is the same as multiplying x by 1/2, right? So 1/2 x, and then I'm going to take 4 and divide it by 2. So now I've got a y-intercept of 2, so let me plot that. And the slope is up 1 over 2. Or down 1 and left 2. And then I can connect that. All right, so I was able to determine the equation, that's this. I was able to graph both, so I did that. And now I'm stating whether or not each equation constitutes a function. So remember, the way that we determine whether or not we've got a function, if all we see are graphs, or we run the vertical line test. And if I run the vertical line test on our blue function, it's going to pass, right? There's no vertical line that I could draw that would hit that blue function 2 times. And I could do the same thing with my red function, which is its inverse. It turns out that this one also passes the vertical line test. So I could just use one sentence here. I'll just say that both equations are functions because they pass the vertical line test. And that's all there is to that. Just to remind you, remember that an inverse function is really just the original function reflected over that line, y equals x. So you don't have to draw this in, but I'm just going to show you here that if I draw it, you can see that this is our original function, and all we've done is flip it over that line y equals x, and there it is. There's your inverse function. All right? Hopefully that helps. And this homework should prepare you for most of what the quiz will be on tomorrow. Remember to go through the other videos and the other notes as well if you're having questions about what might be on it. All right? Have a good night, guys, and I'll see you all tomorrow.